I've noticed a pattern in people who are capable, thoughtful, self aware. They don't struggle because they don't know what to do. They struggle because their lives were designed in a way that doesn't make the right thing the easy thing. And most high functioning people have a moment that they recognize where they know that they want to create a new habit and create change in their lives. And they feel motivated. They map it all out. They even have a first good week. And then life happens. They miss a day, then two, and then they start negotiating with themselves. I'll restart on Monday. I'll do it when things get better. And they start to not only drop the habit, but also tell a story about themselves. That they're inconsistent. They aren't capable. That maybe this thing just isn't for them. And what actually failed wasn't you. It was the system that the habit was designed in. And what I want to show you today is how to separate personal effort from system design so that you can stop blaming yourself when habits collapse. As someone who has been able to create short-term, long-term habits, I'm going to teach you my secret. This is one part of a series, a one-part video. In a series, the playlist will be linked down in the description. I highly recommend going through the entire pathway to understand habit architecture. Motivation is a mood, discipline is a muscle, and design is infrastructure. Motivation is a mood. We all know that motivation comes and goes. We'll watch those videos where they're getting us all pumped up and ready to go and do the thing. And then slowly that motivation drops and drops and drops. That's because it is a mood. And when you try to build a habit off of motivation, something that isn't sustaining, you then build a habit that isn't sustainable. So we all know those days where we don't feel like getting up, where life is getting hard, where it just feels impossible. Motivation isn't there. So what are you gonna do with the habit that's built solely on motivation? You can't do anything with it, which is why those kind of habits break. Next is discipline is a muscle. Most of us were supposed to learn discipline during childhood from our parents, watching them be consistent and do the things. Sometimes it isn't always like that. And I will see people who create a habit that is similar to a 20-pound weight, but they've only ever lifted 2 pounds. And so, of course, they set themselves up for failure because they've designed a habit that is meant to be a 20-pound weight when they've only ever lifted 2 pounds. So, discipline is a muscle that has to be gained. You have to show yourself that I can trust myself. I can do this. And another thing that I want to mention with discipline doesn't equal happiness. You can go and be disciplined with a habit for 3 years, and that habit doesn't improve your life. It doesn't make you happy, and it doesn't yield any results. You have so many videos that go around be like, oh, You need discipline to be successful. Discipline is one piece of the pie. It's one ingredient in the recipe. It's not the whole thing. It's not the dessert. It's not the entree. It's one piece of the puzzle. And design is infrastructure. What's very important is that our habits last through the stressful moments in life. They need to be designed with infrastructure that can sustain emotional winds, emotional hurricanes, the ups and downs, the success and the failures. It's like a building. You don't want to be in a building that's going to fall apart if the winds are too strong. But sometimes we create habits that are similar to very weak buildings. So it's important that you create a habit with the infrastructure to be able to withstand those stressful days. This is very important. It's very important to create a habit that can withstand stressful days. Because every day isn't rainbows, sunshines, and kitties. So to recap, if your habits rely on mood and muscle, they will collapse under stress. If they are built with infrastructure in mind, they will survive real life. Effort to second nature. Effort is a bridge, not the foundation. What happens when you build habits off of effort is after so long, you'll burn out. You will burn out. After a month or 2, 3 months, maybe even 4 months, maybe you're really good at it in your last 6 months. But those habits start to feel so heavy. It starts to feel like a drag in your day. Instead of them improving your life, they make you miserable. Effort can start change, but it is the architecture of the habit that will create sustainability. I've created a habit architecture guide, which will help you to restructure your habits using the things that I'm talking about in this video and in future videos on the playlist. So I highly recommend going down to the description and grabbing you a copy. The 21-day lie. We've all seen those videos where they're like, change your life around in 21 days. Do this habit for 21 days and your life will become magical. All of your problems will be solved in just 21 days. Habits don't stabilize on a timeline. I want you to think of the 21 days as a appetizer. It's just a taste of what's to come. Not the full course meal. That's why so many people, they get to like that 3-week mark and they drop the habit. And it's because they've been sold instant gratification. A lot of habits won't stabilize in 21 days. 21 days is the beginning. It is the trial period, right? Where you're learning, okay, how does this work in my life? How does it feel to incorporate this? Does it make me feel good? Is it a bit hard? Do I need to switch some things around? Change the environment maybe? Change what I'm doing? When, what, where, how? That is what the 21 days is for. It's not the full thing. It's not the full course meal. It's just an appetizer. And when people internalize this 21 days and then they get to that point and they don't feel fully stabilized in it or feel successful at that point, then they feel like, oh, I'm gonna just drop it. So what's important to remember is that habits don't fail because you run out of time. The 21 days are up. They fail because you need to have a sustainable environment, sustainable energy demands. Because that's another thing that people don't take into account. They just think, oh, I just need to make it to 21 days. If I make it to 21 days, this thing is set and final. They don't take into account energy. They don't take into account environment. They don't take into account identity. So stop being sold on a 21-day myth. It is an appetizer, not the full course thing. We want our habits to last longer than 21 days. Habits are relational and contextual. If your context changes, so should your habit. If not, it'll break. Habits don't exist in isolation. They exist with environments, roles, people, things, places. A habit can feel easy in one stage of life, and then in another, it feels impossible. For example, when people become parents, they'll often tell you, oh yeah, I used to do this, and that before I had kids. That's because in one stage of life, they had a habit set up to involve a certain type of environment, place, people, things. And then life changes, and babies and kids and marriage and home changes, environment changes, job changes come into play. They forget to redesign the habit. And because they don't redesign it, it eventually breaks. The habit will eventually fall away and break. And then they'll be reminiscing years down the line of when you're like, yeah, I used to be so fit back then. I used to be this, and that back then. I used to read a book every day back then. And it's because they didn't redesign the habit to fit their new season of life. Become self-aware of excuses. What we call excuses are often just signals that our brain is trying to give us. And a lot of times, these signals and excuses can be labeled as laziness. But that's not always 100%. When you notice yourself saying, I don't have time, I'll do it next week, I can't do that right now, I have too much going on, don't moralize it. Become self-aware and make a mental note. Make a mental note of it. You are an excuse. You are an excuse. And just label it that. And practice like the first 1 to 3 times that these excuses are coming up. Just practice being like, that's an excuse. You don't have to necessarily do anything yet. Just label it as an excuse and become self-aware of it. Next, you're going to ask yourself, what is this excuse protecting me from? Ding, 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 ding. That's the most important part that people often miss with excuses. They just try to click through the excuse, but don't take the time to realize, why is it showing up in the first place? Out of all the excuses your brain could come up with, maybe why that one? So ask yourself, what is this excuse protecting me from? And this can get a bit tricky. And I'm going to give an example. So let's say you're trying to create the habit of working out every day for an hour. And one excuse that might come up is the weather. It's too cold outside. It's too cold. And And maybe really go through and dissect that. I'm gonna give you two types. One could be just human evolution. So for example, back in the caveman days, you going out and burning calories could get you killed. You needed those calories to survive the winter. You needed those calories. You can go off and burn them stupidly, doing jumping jacks and push ups. You needed that energy back during caveman times. But today, in modern society, we're not scared that we're going to die in the winter anymore. But sometimes that evolution can still be playing a part in the background. And it can be trying to protect you, but it doesn't realize yet that we're in civilized age. You got to remember, humans have spent most of our lives living the same way as animals do, being scared of predators, of this, of that, of needing to survive hard weather, needing to survive the winter, needing to get food, hunt for our food. We don't live like that anymore, but most of our years have been like that. So sometimes our brains can have a hard time registering this, and so it'll throw out excuses just to keep you safe, but it's just evolution. And another example of that same excuse is with identity. Let's say you've been overweight all your life and you were bullied and made fun of, and your sole identity has only ever really been being overweight. Let's say as a kid you were always overweight, so that's all you ever knew was being overweight and being made fun of. So deep down inside, going and working out can be a little bit scary because who are you going to be in this new body? What does this mean for our identity and how the world would treat us if we succeed? How will you feel about yourself in this new body? And so that simple excuse of, oh, this or oh, that can really be something deeper beneath the surface. And so I highly recommend journaling and taking the time to really dig up the root cause of some of these excuses so that you could get a better understanding of yourself. And so that your future habits that you create can be even better than the ones that, you're struggling with some of these excuses because you already know somewhat where they're coming from. And so it gives you a boost with the new habits that you're going to create as time goes on. I kind of like to call this next step deleting the excuse or challenging it. So let's say, right back to the weather being an excuse. Let's say, like, okay, I'm going to go and get winter clothes to go and exercising. So it creates a loop. So that morning, the next morning when you get up, what? Your brain like, oh, but the weather is cold. Okay. And I have winter clothes that I bought for workouts. What you gonna do now? What excuse you gonna throw out now? And so you literally just invalidated that excuse because you now have something to counteract it. So it creates a nice loop of in a more productive way of calling yourself out on your BS. Because some people, they just be like, oh, call yourself out on your BS. But that doesn't solve the actual issue. It just forces effort and grit to get over the excuses, which you can use sometimes. That's very helpful. But honestly, just doing things that instantly invalidate that excuse and having enough self-awareness to be like, That's an excuse. I have my winter clothes to work out in. And that is what we're going to do today. That's an invalid excuse. Try better tomorrow. Try better tomorrow. And so you just create this loop that really helps you to understand excuses and know how to deal with them. And this will help you to decode resistance instead of just complying and bullying yourself into it. If this reframed how you think about habits, the next video I will deep dive deeper into how context shapes consistency. And so be sure to check out the playlist in the description. And if you want a practical tool to use, I have the Habit Architecture Guide in the description as well.